Welcome, welcome, welcome to all my wonderful listeners and subscribers, followers. My name is Ruth Hill, and it is my delight and honor to welcome you to another episode of Media from the Heart, my new podcast. For today's guest, we had writer Cori Lynn come and talk to us about how she got started in writing, her new soon-to-be-published book, and we had a fantastic virtual audience who asked all sorts of wonderful questions. So please enjoy our conversation, our interactions. You'll even notice there was a giveaway that happened. And so I will check in with all of you after the episode. Enjoy. So I want to welcome everybody to another episode of Media from the Heart. I'm Ruth Hill, your host. And I have a very special person with me today, a special guest. She is an author, screenwriter, and I am so excited that she is my next guest. And her name is Cori Lynn, and I'm going to let her do more of the introduction of herself. But Cori Lynn, thank you so much for being here. It is a pleasure to have you. And what I would like to do is I want to give you the floor to be able to tell us your story, because your story of how you have worked to become an author and writer, and I just want you to be able to tell the story. So I'm actually going to take myself off spotlight, and I'm going to let you tell the story.
Okay. Well, let's see, I think maybe about 10 or 15 years ago, I was an avid reader in high school and college. I just loved reading. And as I was reading through some of the books, I thought what most authors think, which is, I think I could write a story like that. So I attempted to do a novel first I'm actually based out of Phoenix, Arizona. And I have a background, let me back up a little bit. I'm based out of Phoenix, Arizona. I have a background in marketing and global business. So that's what actually pays the bills. Writing right now is an expensive hobby. And so about 10 or 15 years ago, I decided to give it a shot to try a novel. And so my first one was sort of inspired by the authors that I like reading, Terry Blackstock, Dee Henderson, which sort of has more of a mystery / drama kind of vibe to it. And so I created my first novel off of that. And I even went on a police ride along and did all the research for what it would be like to be an undercover police agent. And then that kind of fell a little flat, honestly, because usually your first novel is sort of you get through it and you learn a lot from your first novel, but a majority of people don't really publish them because they're not always that great when you first start. So after that, I had a mutual friend, who had a person that she knew who wanted to do film. And this was in the early 2000s. And she said, "Oh, you need a screenwriter? I have a friend that writes." Well, I'd never written anything before. So I thought, well, what the heck? I'll give a movie a shot. And not knowing anything at all, I confidently went in there and said, "Yeah, sure, I can write a movie." And then realized I don't know anything about writing movies, because they're completely different genres from movie and book. And just to kind of keep it short, the story short, movies just have mostly dialogue and action, whereas books have a lot more description and you're more intimate with the character and you're in their head kind of learning a little bit about it. So after a little trial and error, we produced the first screenplay for the director's passion, which was convenience. And that was a full feature film that we made out here in Arizona, and we filmed it up north because it's very hot here. And so filming anything in the summer, you might as well just go up north because it's a little bit cooler. So after we did that, our team realized we had a lot of fun making movies. So we got together and did a ton of different short films that we were able to enter into Phoenix Film Festival. And throughout those short films, I was able to win a few awards. But I had Best Story for Masterpiece, which is my personal favorite short film. And then I won Audience Choice for The Treehouse, which was also another really cool short film. So we did those for a little while, and then we thought, let's make another movie. And so the director came to me and said, "Listen, I don't have an idea this time. You have to come up with an idea." And so I thought about that whole concept of what could you do if you are around somebody? Can you influence somebody for the better and not know it? And so that's where we came up with Life in Transit. And I had this guy traveling on a bus, and I went to the director and I said, well, where are we going to get a bus? And he said, don't worry about that. We'll worry about that later. And I said, well, where are we going to get a Navy uniform? And he said, don't worry about that. We'll worry about that later. So after worrying about it later, we produced Life in Transit. I think it took us about 3 months. And we opened up a bunch of, out here we have Harkins theaters. I don't know if everybody on the Zoom call is familiar, but they're our local theater company out here. And what we did was we rented 3 different locations, and we paid up front, and then we charged people the cost of just what a ticket would cost to cover the rental. So we didn't make any profit. We just wanted to cover the rental. So in doing that, we had 3 showings that were all sold out. And about I think over 1,000 people ended up seeing that movie, which is pretty decent if you're local. And then we put it to DVD, and Convenience was on DVD. And some of the short films we put on the behind the scenes of Life in Transit. And that's where I started to grow my IMDb credits and kind of got that going. Then after that, it kind of was this weird thing. I actually know Ruth because we both follow the television show When Calls the Heart. And I actually kind of got involved following that by accident because I don't have Hallmark. So it was on Netflix, and I was sick, and I was looking for something to binge watch while I started to get better. And I thought, oh, it has, Aunt Becky in it, and, I know who she is. So let's give this a shot. So after season one binge watching all the way through, I realized, wow, this is a really good show, and it has family friendly values and good qualities, and it's well written. So I started to do some research and realized that Brian Bird was the executive producer. Well, I don't know if he was executive producer, but he did direct and create the show at the time. And so what I thought was, I gotta get to know this guy somehow. So I ended up going to one of the fan reunions that they have in Vancouver. And I think every other fan was there to see the stars of the show. I was there to see the cast and crew. So when you're into writing and doing behind the scenes stuff, you want to meet all those people and kind of network with all those people and create some relationships face to face if you can. So I did a little bit of that. Made some friends with him, and I actually wrote an episode of When Calls the Heart. And Brian told me while he appreciated that, due to copyright, he couldn't read it. So I thought, well, maybe I can try some other stuff. So I dabbled with some other screenplays and different things, and some of them are actually under review right now, but I don't have any news yet on those. And then while all that was happening, Hallmark did this thing where they said, hey, if you want to be published and you don't have an agent, we're going to run a contest where you can submit one of your stories, and we might consider it to publish it. So I was out in my garage one day, and I had an old steamer trunk, and I started to think, well, what would happen if there was something hidden in this trunk somewhere, some journal or letters or something from the past? What kind of story would that be? And I thought, hey, that could work for Hallmark. So Hearts Under Fire was born from that idea, and originally was written to submit to Hallmark, which I did. They read it. They said it was a good story, but it was a little too historical for what they were looking to produce at that particular time. So during that time, a lot of the fans from When Calls the Heart were also becoming friends of mine, started to sort of follow the book. And then we kind of got this hashtag going, and we, built my brother did the book cover. So I was able to do some branding, build out the website, different things like that started to sort of fall in place. And I thought, why not just self-publish it myself and see what happens? Because there's a lot of people that really wanted to see the story in print. So through a process of the last couple of years, pitching it to some agents and working through whether or not I wanted to go traditional or self-publishing, a few different things happened there, which I will basically save you guys the annoyance of having to hear the whole story. But the result was, with my marketing background, it was probably best for me to try self-publishing. And so here we are on this podcast. The book's going to come out in a couple weeks. I will say, as far as like the future goes of my story, I do have 2 producers interested in the movie rights to the film already. So I have started writing the book's screenplay, the script version of this book, and already have a couple producers who want to see that script on their desk. So the idea that I kind of came up with that I've never seen another author do yet, I mean, I'm sure there's authors that are doing this, but I just haven't seen anybody do it yet, was originally I wrote the book for Hallmark thinking, well, maybe Hallmark might turn it into a movie. And if they do, why not write the book's outline to a movie, like the beats of an outline of a movie script? So that way, if they came back and said, hey, we want this book and we think we want to turn it into a movie, I could say, hey, how about me write the movie? And it's already written, you know, and kind of see if I could have a little bit of creative control over having written the script prior to and having written the book. So that's where we are today, which is to kind of, you know, authors usually will stick to one genre because they're kind of so different when you write them. But for me, I was trying to figure out, you know, which avenue is going to be the one that I should go down. And this might give me an opportunity to see, is books going to do well for me, or is scripts going to do well for me? And which one should I fall into as an author? So long story short, that's kind of where we are. And sorry, it's a little bit long-winded, but there's quite a bit of history that's taken place since the start.
Oh my goodness. No. First of all, you did an exceptional job, Cori. Absolutely amazing, of filling in any. I didn't even need to ask any questions. You like covered them all, and I can certainly see your marketing background and your storytelling background, all of that figured in. So no, you are not long-winded. I actually think that I've been doing this long enough. No, you are not long-winded. I've talked with long-winded people. You're not one of them.
Okay.
Honestly.
Well, I was like, how do I get the cliff notes here? Because I was actually expecting you to ask me questions, which makes it easier because then I can just answer. But I was like, okay, how do I just hit the highlights here?
No. I'm glad. Sometimes I don't always know. I just had the sense of, I thought it would be easier for you to introduce yourself, and then you went and you just made my job a whole lot easier.
Oh, well, good.
I didn't stop and ask questions, and I was able to pay attention and think, okay, that could be something we could go back to, or whatever the case is. I will tell you right now, I know that Chad, who's in here, wrote in the comments, said that this is amazing, and it's true. This is amazing. Your story filled in so many blanks, because I'll be honest, that's kind of like, I know I've been following you for a while, but I didn't really know how I even got connected with you in some ways. And you just filled in a few blanks. So I think that's awesome. And I was fascinated. I did not understand until I went and started examining your website. I saw all these short films that you have been a part of, and then your first book. So now, your first book that you mentioned, is that actually been published? Is it available for purchase?
So it's called Where Justice Lies. And if you ask my mom, she would say it's her favorite. She actually likes it better because it's what she likes to read. And she's been pressing on me. She's like, as soon as Hearts Under Fire is done, you got to go back and fix that book. Because the reason I say fix it is because one thing that I'd love to share with people on this is, if you love reading, connect with an author, because they love beta readers. We love people to read our stuff, tell us what stinks, tell us what you like, because it helps us be better in the long run to producing better works of, creativity. And so she really liked that one. And I found that although beta readers are awesome and I love them, and I think probably over 100 people have already read Hearts Under Fire, I also was able to get a couple of published authors to read the first 3 chapters, and they give you a different level of feedback because you don't know what you don't know. So with Where Justice Lies, I would have to go back and fix what I didn't know, and kind of go through a process before that would be published. But I can tell you, until the day my mom goes to heaven, she will push on me to try to have that put into print somehow. But yeah, so that was sort of my get my feet wet novel. And I might revisit it, but with the interest of the movie screenplay for Hearts Under Fire, that will be the next project as soon as the book is published. I will get that script on those desks. So, because Ruth, being in the entertainment industry, I'm sure you know how long that stuff can take. And then half the time it doesn't even pan out. So, it's hurry up and wait, right?
Exactly. Oh no, I totally get
And
that.
I also want to say, I'm very honored that you have me on your podcast. I know I've watched a couple of your interviews in the past when they were on YouTube Live, and I would try to insert a comment, but you were so popular that comments were just like, and I just was like, when you said, hey, come on my podcast, I was actually a little bit intimidated, but I thought, well, I'll just reach out and see if she'll be willing to have me on. So thank you so much for having me as your guest.
Well, it's my pleasure, honestly, Cori. I mean, I was really excited that because you responded so quickly. I mean, once I put that out there, you responded so quickly, and I have been looking for a way. I've been doing these interviews for so long. I've been looking for a way to highlight not just celebrities and actors and that kind of thing, but I wanted it to be people that my favorite thing is to find someone who maybe is not famous or not even like really known. Maybe they're just starting to get things done, and I kind of almost quote unquote discover. I'm one of the people who maybe discovers their talent. And I love being able to feature them. That's one of the things that I have enjoyed the most. And sometimes it's hard to do that with the way I did things before. It was not always easy to do that. And that's why I'm so glad that now I've got this opportunity with this podcast and with this wonderful group, because we have this nice little group that of virtual audience that is watching, and they're here, and some of them might come on in a little bit and ask me some questions, because I'm sure that they're probably listening and thinking, oh, I hope that I get the chance to ask this question, or maybe something like that. And I was so glad that this opportunity came about, and I'm so glad you jumped at it, and I was able to and I'll tell you, I am wearing, you won't not be able to see it too much, but I am wearing the shirt that you sent me. So.
And I have to say, it looks really good on you.
Well, thank you. And what
I might be biased.
Well, what you can't see is on the back. I mean, for those of you who are saying, well, there's merchandise. Now that's the thing that blows my mind. Okay, so now this book, and I do want to revisit. I do want us to talk about the book, but you're already merchandising this book.
Yes.
I mean, which I think is absolutely cool. Now, of course, with the marketing background, I totally get that. It's very rare for me to see an independent author already having merchandise available, like to accompany the book. So can you tell us, like, how did that come about? Doing this merchandise?
Yeah. So it's funny because it actually came about because I'm a poor author. And so here's kind of how it came about. So when I was looking at trying to do the book cover, my brother is an amazing designer. They always say you have somebody in your corner who nobody else has, like an advantage, a secret advantage. He's my secret advantage. And so he came up and I said, listen, I said, I need to get a book cover made if we're gonna, start promoting this for people to familiarize themselves with the brand of the book itself. But I don't have the money to pay for models to do photography session. And we couldn't find a stock photo that enabled the two main characters of the book, or what it would look like, because you've got this modern day character and then you've got a character from 1941. So who do you choose to go on the cover? So he came up with this brilliant idea. This is the book cover, which was, he said, let's make the title the star, he said. And so what ended up happening by just coincidence is that you ended up with a logo. And if you think about authors, the majority of them don't do merchandise with their books that I've seen anyway, because the majority of their titles are just words. They're not a logo. So when we ended up with this logo, I thought, heck, man, I could probably put this logo on shirts. Well, shirts was the first idea. Then I came up with the vintage Letterman hoodie. Then I thought, why not put it on a journal? Because there's a journal in the book. Then I kept finding myself running into people at the grocery store or the hair place. And they're like, well, tell me what your book's about. And I always had my cards in my car, but I thought, what's always in our purse? Chapstick. So I thought, what if I put the Hearts Under Fire logo on chapstick with the website and then allow people to read the first 3 chapters online for free? And then when I had some family members over, they were like, man, I really want a cup of coffee. And so henceforth, we ended up with a coffee mug and had those made. So the neat thing about the merch is from a marketing standpoint, and I think Ruth, you can probably attest to this. If you look at just When Calls the Heart and the following that show has, we're living in a society right now where people want to be a part of something more than just themselves. They want to be part of a group. They want to associate and identify with something. Whether that's healthy or not is not for me to say. But as a marketing person, that's genius, because if you can create a brand that people want to be a part of or connect with, then you can actually sell, merchandise that goes with that brand because people want to wear it. And that's true if anybody that has children or kids, or even you're a YouTube fanatic, all these YouTubers are selling their own brands, they're selling their own slogans, and they're making money off merchandise. So I thought that could be a way that I could change allow me to have a profit margin outside of the book. But then when the inflation started happening and shipping rates started going up, I realized that I had to find a way to cut costs to the person who would buy the product. So all of my merchandise is going to be sold at cost plus the tax that I paid, and it should cover some shipping. That way I can keep it as low as possible. In fact, you talked a little bit about the journal. And so this is the journal that I had done. It's made in the good old USA. It's real leather, and it is engraved with the logo. You can't really tell with this lighting. But this was something where I was going to pay a promo person $32 to make it, and then I was going to have to try to put shipping on that. And I thought no one's going to be able to afford a $32, $40 journal, and they're probably not going to pay for it, honestly. So I went on Amazon and I found this journal, and it was $17. And I had it shipped to my house. And then I found a local company who did leather engraving, and they engraved the logo real inexpensively for me. And then here's a kind of a cool story. When the guy found out I was a startup company, he waived that cost for the first round of journals. So if somebody buys a journal from me in person, I can do it for $20. And if somebody buys something online, I can do it for $25. And that's a lot more affordable than $40. So I'm not making a profit on my merchandise right now, but that's not what it's about for me. What it's about for me is having giveaways, using the product to, people are advertising my product. So I'm going to keep it as low cost as I possibly can. And then if for some reason I don't sell, because this is brand new, I haven't seen this done. So this is guinea pigging a little bit here. If for some reason nothing sells, then if you think about all the people in the industry who you want to connect with and maybe you want them to read your book, or you want them to read your script, and you can get an address for them, you can ship the product off and get their attention a little bit better than just sending them a pile of paper. So from a marketing standpoint, it works great for giveaways, like being able to come on a podcast and give something for free, or to create network connections. So I don't know if that kind of was over speaking there, but that's where that came from and why I did it.
No, that's great. And speaking of that, for those of you who are here and sticking around till the end, you can see that it does work, because Cori was nice enough to send me this, which is the journal and the chapstick. And one of you people who is here will receive that as a giveaway at the end here. I'm going to randomly choose from our participants, and I will send that to you personally from her, but no, I want to just acknowledge you. How amazing that you're not all about profits, and you're thinking of, you want to promote your book and you want to promote the brand, and you really are creating a brand here, which is amazing. I hadn't even realized you were doing that. And the more I hear about it, because then since I'm doing that now too, I can hear exactly what you're doing, and how great that you are more concerned about giving people, you're not interested in making some huge profit. You just want people to be able to have something and get it at a reasonable cost.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's something that goes along with their whole, that enhances their experience. It enhances the experience of the book, and it promotes your brand. And so speaking of that book, can you just give us a brief summary of the book? So since it's coming out soon, people, I'm sure, people who are in this audience would probably be like, well, I might be interested in reading the book, but tell me a little bit about it.
Right. Okay, so basically, like I said, I was in my garage talking to a friend, and we were trying to figure out how to restore an old trunk that I have. And this idea came up that, like, what if somebody my age, or, you know, maybe in their 30s, found this trunk? And of course, you know, doing it for Hallmark, it's that antique restoration person that wants to do that for a job. And it's about a young lady named Laura who finds a journal in the bottom of a trunk in a sort of an open space on the bottom. Inside that is a journal from 1941, and it's written by a young lady named Ava, and she's falling in love with this young man named Dean, and it's right before Pearl Harbor is hit. So we start off in the journal, and in 1941, finding out that Pearl Harbor's been attacked, and he decides to enlist in the Navy. And his best friend, Grayson, who's also a friend of her and her sister, Tessa, they decide to go off into the Navy and enlist. And so what she also finds later towards the end of the journal is letters from Dean back to Ava. So you can kind of see this story play out of, you know, this love story that's been sort of torn asunder by war. And then we do a little bit of cut back to Laura throughout and see kind of what she's going through, because she's kind of become a little bit of an introvert, because she's dealing with some loss of her own. And so as she gets to the end of the journal, it ends with Ava finding out that Dean is missing in action. And so Laura's stuck with some questions and can use Google technology and things to try to figure out, you know, is there any family anywhere? Can I return the journal? What happened? You know, did they get together? You know, kind of figure that story out. So it's a dual story timeline, and you find that the character of Laura and the character of Ava are very parallel characters in how their personalities are. And then they have, you know, the rambunctious sister and best friend that sort of keep them on their toes, that give the story a little bit of comedic humor. So you can have a little bit of that down, but then you can have a little bit of that, you know, up. And what I was able to do, I feel so blessed that I was able to do this, but my grandfather was a World War II veteran, and he fought in the Okinawa bombing. And so he told me stories of what it was like to fly in his plane and go up, and all the anxieties that came with that. So his stories are actually Dean and Grayson's stories. And then I was able to talk to my great aunt on my mom's side, who was alive during the wartime, and she told me the stories of what it was like to be on the home front. And so I used her inspiration for Ava and Tessa's stories. So a lot of what I was able to write, I was able to stay confident with, just because I had firsthand accounts of from them. And then I did a lot of research and read over 100 firsthand accounts just in general of World War II stories to get an idea of how to like kind of put these together. So that's kind of the gist of it. And I won't say much more just so that I don't ruin any of the ending. However, I will say if somebody is interested in reading the book, they can read the first 3 chapters on my website for free and decide if it's something for them.
Okay. That's good. Yes, I was noticing that because you have a really, really nice website.
Oh, thank you.
You really do. I was really spending some time looking around it today. Now, the merchandise, is the merchandise also available on your website? Is it not available yet? Is that going to be something that will be available?
So you said I jumped on to respond to you super quick about being on the podcast. And that's because unfortunately on November 8th, I lost my full-time job suddenly and unexpectedly. So the plan was originally to launch the book December 7th, and I could afford to have people help me. Like I was paying different people to help me format and do some things. And then when I lost my job, I had to kind of cut back on that. So Where we're at right now is I'd like to launch the merchandise with the book. And so I have a guy out in England who's helping me with the website and working on turning the My Bloggers page into the merch page. So it will tie to a Shopify account that I've already built, but we have to tie those together. And then hopefully we'll launch the book and the merch around the same time. And then as far as the book goes, I'm formatting it myself with the help of a self-published author friend. And so her and I are working to try to get that done within the next 2 or 3 weeks. So I'm hoping that, I mean, I would have loved to have it done by now. Trust me, I wish this was so done. But when I lost my job and then I ended up sadly with COVID at the end of August. So that threw off the timeline a lot too. So I've been kind of working through a little bit of some setbacks and challenges, and but yet I have a feeling it'll go when it's supposed to go. And so so that will be available on the website as well once he ties it to, and I was hoping he would be tied to it by now, but he actually works full-time for a real company and I'm just his side gig.
That's right. No. Well, and I actually appreciate that you brought up the thing about the challenges and the setbacks and all that, because I think all of us can relate to that. And I love the fact that you didn't give up, because some people in your position, well, I lost the job, I need to jump on and find another job and stop following my passion, what's really driving me, this dream of mine. And yet you didn't give up. You found another way to do it. You're like, okay, maybe it changes the timeline, but I'm still going to go forward with it. And so that's great that you continue to go forward in spite of those challenges. And it's going to be really great, because we all know that if there were no challenges or setbacks, well, then then it'd probably be too easy, and it probably wouldn't be all that great. The great things that happen in this world seem to happen as a result of people going through difficulties and going through hard times. I mean, we always hear all what are the stories that we're always drawn to? The stories of somebody who's really successful, but they're successful because they came through all these things. We don't really want to hear this. We don't want a story where, well, I didn't have any problems. Everything came together just like clockwork and I had no problems. Nobody wants to really read that story or hear that story. So actually, I think your story is more inspiring as a result of your setbacks. And so it's going to be great. I have no doubt.
Well, and I had a epiphany from my mom she was watching kind of the struggles that I've had to go through just in my life, just from before this. And she said, I believe you're supposed to be a writer because the struggles you go through allow you to empathize on a level with your characters to make them more relatable to the audience. So by having the struggles and challenges that I go through, I can actually apply them back into my story and try to say, okay, I can put myself in that character's shoes and hopefully bring the audience to a relatable, like I've been there, I've done that. And, you talked about money and fame and things like that. And why I kind of started this was because I can't turn on the TV and find anything that I feel like I could watch with every family member of every generation. And so it's like, what can we do to put out media and creative content that is a little bit healthier, a little more family friendly, something that nobody has to be afraid to, turn on or read or hand off. And so that's part of why I kind of created this. And I want to be in that genre and that brand of family friendly entertainment that people know they're safe with if they take a look at something I have. And not just that, but when you're in marketing, you have a responsibility to have a high level of integrity for what you market. I will not work for a company outside of writing. I won't work for a company that I won't buy their product myself or that I don't believe in it, because you're influencing other people to create them to do some sort of action. And I won't call to action somebody to do something I wouldn't do myself. And so when I get to talk about this book, it's great because I don't have to say, well, watch out for page 22. I don't have to say any of that. I can give it to my grandma or a 10-year-old niece or nephew and just be fine knowing that they'll be okay reading whatever I hand off to them. So that's part of, why I do this and why it's important to me to let people know about it is just because that's what I want to do eventually is whatever I produce full time would be family friendly.
Exactly. So, so I do want to, it's very possible that we've got some people on here who would like to ask you some questions, because that's one of the exciting parts of this show. It's why I love having the audience, and we have some great members here. Some people that some of them I know very well, some of them I only know just I know their name only, and I've not even had much of a chance to interact with them. But is there anybody here who would like to? Now, you don't have to come on and ask the question. You can always ask through chat. But is there somebody who would like to come on and actually ask Cori a question? Anybody?
It looks like someone in the chat asked about the research for the historical.
Okay, yeah, that was Timmy, yeah, and then Paula, I'll bring you on in just a minute. But yeah, I think you addressed that?
Yeah, if I didn't address it, Timmy, let me know. But like I said, it was just reading a bunch of firsthand accounts, talking to family members, and then I will say this though, a World War II published author who I really love. And she's got the book with her now. She may potentially endorse the book. And if she looks through it, she might find some things in there that I need to change, because when she went through the first 3 chapters, she's like, yeah, we said trousers, not slacks, or slacks, not trousers. So there could be things like that, going through being a self-published person, you may not catch everything, but we're doing our darndest to catch it all between me and all my beta readers and editors that have offered to help. So we're doing our darndest, but for those that are sticklers to the historical facts, there could be something that would pop up that I'm like, but if I try to get everything, I'll never put a book out because it'll never be perfect. But yeah, okay, it looks like I got y'all covered.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Okay, so Paula, did you want to ask your question? Let me bring you. Okay, let me bring you here.
Hi, Paula.
Right. Hello. I have a grandson who is writing stories all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm always interested in reading, what he writes. How early did you start? Did you start when you were a young person, or did you do this in college, or just went straight to marketing? I mean, when did it come to you that this is what you wanted to do?
That's a great question. It's kind of an interesting answer too. When I was in first grade, my first grade teacher told my parents that I would have to probably repeat first grade because I stunk at English. So writing was not originally where I had wanted to go. I actually got through my first 2 years of college with marketing before I realized I wanted to do writing, and I probably should have got a journalism degree. But it was about college age that I started dabbling, and that was because I spent a ton of high school and college reading other authors and thought it would be kind of fun to come up with something myself. So it wasn't real young, but kind of in that range. And then I think it probably took another couple of years before I was brave enough to really share with other people what I was putting together, because it is scary. I mean, even being on this podcast is a little intimidating because you don't really know what you don't know. And so I think that it is hard to share your work. But if your grandson can start sharing it with you and with other people and get your feedback, that's the best thing he can do early, because if you can get the feedback of others, you can become better in a much faster turnaround than if you just keep it to yourself. So encourage him to share with you and, give him feedback. And then one other little note for when you do give him feedback, ask him if he wants red, green, or yellow feedback from you. Green is only positive. Yellow is a little bit of a mix, and red is give it to me straight. And because some new authors are afraid of, the author ego can get hurt sometimes. So it takes a little bit of an adjustment to grow into getting that red critique and being okay with it. So check with him on that. But yeah, the sooner he can share that with you with other people, the better off he'll be at making his stories better, quicker.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah. All right. Okay. All right. Actually, I just wanted to say that was really great. The feedback you talked about, the red, yellow, and green feedback. I've never heard that before. Is that something that?
So we learned it. We had an authors group that I was a part of, and all different levels of authors would attend this group. And so we wanted to make sure we knew if it was a brand new author, we didn't really know them very well. We didn't want to straight up say, yeah, you totally forgot the and a period. And, so some of them, they just wanted positive feedback. But I'll tell you, I've always been somebody that says, give it to me in the red level, because I would rather a beta reader catch something than a producer for Hallmark or somebody who's like, this lady doesn't know what she's doing. I would much rather hear it from somebody close to me, because they're going to be a little bit more kind in the way that they approach that feedback.
Exactly. All right. Well, it looks like Timmy has got another question, she said.
Hi.
Yes, hi. I have a question about your writing process. Do you plan out the entire story before you sit down to write, or do you let the story just take you wherever it will take you? And do you have a schedule, a strict schedule you stick to when it comes to writing? Do you get up, sit down, dedicate a few hours to writing and nothing else, or just whenever and wherever you can write?
Okay, so you got a two-parter. So the first part was, do you plan out and schedule? So there's a kind of a hidden terminology in the writing community called plotters and pantsers.
Yeah.
Okay. So your pantsers are right by the seat of your pants, and your plotters are people who plot out their particular schedule in advance. So this is, for me personally, I'm a little bit of both. So imagine if you're going on a trip somewhere, the first thing you do when you're in your car is you Google the address, right? And it shows you exactly the cheapest or fastest route to get to wherever you're going. So for me, I do a base outline, and usually it's based on a movie script outline. And so I kind of do this base outline that I go through and I fill in the gaps on what scene should happen where, so that the flow of the book or story is adequate and I'm not missing anything. And I'll do like one line, like Laura goes to the antique shop. Okay, so I know that scene is going to be Laura going to the antique shop. And then the next one is Laura gets trunk home but can't get it inside. Okay, so now I know that. So I kind of do that. And then the pantser part of me is when I sit down and actually write the scene, I have no idea how it's going to turn out. So I sort of write by the seat of my pants for the scene itself. So it's a little bit of both. But I will say, if you don't have an outline, it's harder to know where you're going. So it can be, if you're starting off, I would highly suggest using an outline, just because then you can have a pretty good idea that the story is going to make sense from beginning to end, versus just sort of throwing words on a page here and there. And it also will cause you less grief later to figure out how things are. The second part was, do you have a schedule? I don't have a schedule because I have a full-time job. So my schedule tends to be like, if I can fit it in the afternoon, after I get home from work, or on the weekend. But what I do to try to help keep accountable is I have people who come over to my house and write with me, or I'll go to a writer's group. And then that way I know that there's a couple times every month that I better check in with someone, and they're going to ask me where I'm at. So it allows me to be accountable to somebody. But then also when you're writing with other writers and you get stuck, you can say, oh my gosh, what should this person drink for her beverage for lunch? I'm just, and then, oh, a Slurpee. Okay, cool. Well, we'll put a Slurpee in, or whatever. And so to answer the question, I don't have a schedule. However, if you are traditionally published, you do have schedules, and it's usually a book a year, and that editor and that publisher is going to be all over you, asking you when they're going to get their next set of pages. So when you're self-published, you can have a little more flexibility, but if you're traditionally published, then you're going to have an agent and a bunch of people calling and asking where their next stuff is. So with that token, if you're a new writer, you could write a couple projects and have them on hand. That way, if your first project gets picked up and they're already wanting to talk about a second, you're sort of already ahead of the game. But if you have a full-time job like me on the other side, then it can be hard to find time sometimes. Or if you're a moms, I give credit to moms who write, because having kids, that takes up a lot of time. So yeah, just, if you're starting off, just pace yourself with what you feel comfortable with. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thanks for answering.
Perfect.
Okay, we have another person. Okay, let's see. Okay, she's here now. Now I got the right person. Okay.
Hi,
Veronica.
hi, Ruth. Hi,
Hi.
thank you so much. Thank you so much for doing this. This is awesome. Hi, Miss Cori. How are you? How are you both? I'm from Houston, Texas. My name is Veronica Robles, and I love what you just said. Everything, listening to what you're just saying right now, the challenges and the struggles and not giving up. And even when people tell you, you know, this is a waste of time, you still keep going. And I just want to say thank you, because for me, I go through challenges and struggles, and it helps to have somebody also. I have my mom with me. I'm very lucky and blessed to have my mom, but also I like to also have other, you know, you need encouragement right now with everything that's going on, and thank you so much. My question is, how do you, how do you get through, do you get like writer's block sometimes? Because when it gets very frustrating at times, you know, when you have to write and you have to rewrite and rewrite, do you get frustrated sometimes? I mean, I know all writers do, but, you know, I was trying to ask you, just, you know, this is my first time asking a question. I just want to make sure the correct, you know,
No. I think I know where you're coming from. First, I want to address it. First of all, thank you for asking the question and coming on and sharing with us about challenges and struggles. I actually was inspired when I saw the Earth documentary series on Disney Plus with Will Smith, because his mom told him something that resonated with me, which is the great things happen on the other side of fear. And there's a lot of fear that goes along with the challenges, because you have a setback and you're like, am I really supposed to do this? I mean, you get a lot of doubt, you know, whether or not you're actually called to be an author, whether you should even call yourself an author or writer. And so that in itself is something that you have to overcome, and having a support system, whether it's your mom or your brother or beta readers, is so huge when you get into any kind of creation, whether it's painting, drawing, writing, whatever it might be. And I will tell you, I have been lucky not to have a lot of writer's block, because I've plotted my outlines to know kind of what scenes I want to write. However, when I wrote the first film, Convenience, I had writer's block galore. And I realized why. The reason why was because the movie was the director's idea, and he came to me and said, I want to write a story about two guys that are alone in a convenience store and basically goof around when the boss isn't there. And that's all I had. But I had a connection to the characters, or why they were doing it, or why this would even be a film anybody would even want to see. Or it's just like Clerks. So why would we write Clerks 2 or 3 or 4? I didn't connect with the story. So I had writer's block. If you are connected to your story, then you're going to be less likely to have writer's block. And another way to overcome not having it is to really flesh out your characters before you sit down. You know, write a whole, like as if it's your best friend. Their hair color, their eye color, the little twitches they have, the things they're afraid of, the things that they do for their job, age. Because I found that when I write my characters so well that I know them up here and I know them in my heart, I can have the characters. This is the craziest thing, and only other writers will get this. The craziest thing is that good characters can write the scene for you, and you get done with the scene and you're like, I didn't know that was going to happen. Wow. And they basically write your scene for you, because they say, this is what I'm going to say, this is what I'm going to do. And then it's so, like I said, it is so bizarre, but then you get done with the scene and you're like, whoa, that's not how I intended that to go at all. But the characters told me, this is who I am. This is what needs to happen. So those are just a few things to kind of overcome that. And then the last but not least is, if you're really, really stuck, they say that the first 2 paragraphs rolling around in your head is basically like garbage. So just start typing things like, I am in a room, it is 72 degrees, it's cloudy outside, I smell, you know, bread baking in the oven, whatever comes to your mind, just write it all out. And eventually after 2 paragraphs, you're going to get to what you really want to write. And that's going to be the good stuff. And that applies to a book, or it applies to nonfiction as well.
That's incredible. I just want to say thank you so much for coming on here. Congratulations, lots of success. And I totally agree on the part that says what you just said, that it was very hard to find contact for, for appropriate for, I have nieces and nephews, and it's very hard to find because they have to leave the room. It's inappropriate. And I'm like, I love Hallmark. I love that it's family friendly, and it's very hard to find contact, to be able to, the whole family can, watch it together, and that's really, yeah.
And one of the funniest stories I heard when I was writing the book, my cousin read it out in Tennessee, and she has a 10-year-old, she had a 10-year-old at the time, and she was homeschooling. She sent me a text message and said, Brielle is so in love with your book that I have to make her do her homework before she's allowed to read any more of your book.
Oh, wow.
And so to have a 10-year-old kid be able to read it, and I even told my cousin, I'm like, well, there is a couple kisses. And she's like, it's no problem. The kissing is no problem. So so it's great to have kids of that age start to realize, and plus it inspires them to be people that join into our community and write better and more wholesome things for everyone.
Absolutely.
As well. So,
thank you so much. And thank you both. And you guys have a great day. And I'm going to go ahead and mute myself. Thank you both. Thank you, Ruth. Thank you, Miss Cori. Thank you.
You bet. Thank you.
Thank you, Veronica. No, that's great. Oh, I'm learning so much. Oh my goodness. Cori, you're getting like the best advice. It's so awesome. I love the fact that I've been able to bring some people on and ask questions. I mean, that's one of the things that I've loved about this particular setup. You have been an inspiration to me as well. I mean, I love writing. It's like, wow, I'm learning stuff. So it's so awesome.
Ruth, you can call me or message me and we can talk, because I would love to help you back as well, because to me it's about paying it forward. You've been gracious enough to host me on a podcast with some people that follow you. I would love to be able to return the favor with, if you want some marketing tips or connections or whatever, I'd be happy to share with you the insider secrets. If you ask the right questions, I'll give you the right answers that I have. And I always say I may not have a guy, but I have a guy that has a guy. So, I'd be happy to help you with any of that stuff as well, just open-ended, because I appreciate that anybody who can share, we can share with each other and network with each other to bring the good, bring light to a dark world, right? So if we can do that across the board, then that's awesome. Makes me happy to be a part of it.
Exactly. Well, I know that we're just about kind of wrapping things up. I did do some drawing here to try to figure out, what's the best way for me to award the giveaway. Well, I have the giveaway winner. I wasn't sure. First, I was kind of like, how am I going to do this? And I came up with a way that made it really fair. And so, Robin Neely, you are the winner. I will connect with you. You are the winner. You are the winner of both the journal and the little I guess, what are we calling this, chapstick? I mean, it's not really chapstick.
Well, I don't know if we're allowed to say chapstick, but I know, right? But it's lip balm.
Lip balm. That's it.
Yeah,
okay.
And I've heard, this is the crazy stuff, the stuff that I got, whether it's a journal or a shirt or lip balm, everybody said how high quality it was. And I mean, I don't know, I put a chapstick in for you, but everyone said that they love the chapstick, which was a real big surprise.
So I just want to thank all of you, for being here. And if you want to unmute yourselves to say, to either say thank you to Cori, applaud her, or whatever the case is, you may do that at this point because we're just wrapping up here. But if you want to thank her right now, if you want to applaud,
thank you, Miss Cori. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bravo. Thank you, Ruth. Thank you, Miss Cori.
Right, well, thank you all for being here, and thank you, Cori, again. It was great having you. Thank you all for being here, and thank you to the wonderful audience. You all were amazing as well, and thank you, Cori. And we're all excited about your book. It's going to be amazing, and we'll watch out for the movie too. The movie's going to happen.
I hope so.
Oh, thank you. All right. Well, you guys all have a great
Bye.
week, and we'll be in touch. All right.
Bye.
Bye.
I tell you, This is probably my favorite episode so far. Well, that's probably going to be what I say after every episode, because my pledge to all of you is that this podcast will only get better. I want to hear from all of you. I hope that all of you have joined my Media from the Heart Facebook group. If you haven't, it's free to join. And I would love to have you. I would love to have you subscribe, leave a review of my podcast. I'm open to any and all suggestions. We are still growing. This is still the ground floor of my podcast, just getting things going. And it's not perfect. As I will say, I started this podcast before I was ready. And that's what you have to do. Because if you wait till you're ready to do something, it's not going to happen. But thank you all for joining me. Be sure to subscribe. And until next time.